Farmers across Europe are protesting, and in France, the protests and road blockages started on January 18th over low food prices and proposed reductions in state subsidies. But on Thursday, France's two major farmers' unions announced their decision to actually suspend protests and lift road blockades across the country. But before that, the scene was absolute chaos. Farmers driving tractors went head-to-head with French police tanks, blocking a key roadway. And that was just before French president was set to meet with the president of the European Commission. But before all of that, Melissa Bell was on site near Paris to report on the ongoing unrest.
What we've seen since yesterday are these farmers who'd been spreading their discontent fairly widely across France, blockading roads with their tractors elsewhere around the country, dumping manure outside of local stores, setting tires and waste to light to try and draw attention to their anger. It had begun in the south of France more than a week ago and has now moved progressively closer to Paris. And we're now just on the outskirts of Paris. Their plan is to stay until they get what they want from the government. Now, what they're complaining about are a combination of higher production costs as a result of the EU subsidy system and government efforts to bring down food inflation for people, coupled with an extraordinary amount of red tape, they say, that makes it simply impossible for them to do their job. For instance, what French farmers say is that it takes them an entire day each week just to fill out the paperwork that they need in order to get their subsidies from the Common Agricultural Policy. So it's a number of different issues that they say have driven them to this, to trying to put a stranglehold around the French capital in order to bring it to a halt. It is a siege that they're threatening. For now, just a few of these main roads into Paris are being blocked. Their threat, though, is that this will get greater. Now, as you can see, well, just behind me, where they've had set up a little while ago a big screen, they were listening to Gabriel Attal, the French Prime Minister, make a series of announcements to the French Parliament. For now, I have to say, it was a fairly broad speech, very fiery. He's new in his job, he's very young, and it was his job to try and show that he was determined to change the way the French state worked. In terms of specifics for farmers, it was fairly short on those, but we expect more measures to be announced today. Much more crucial, though, likely to be this meeting on Thursday. EU leaders will meet. And remember that this is now a European-wide problem. Each set of farmers from the particular countries has their own set of grievances, but altogether, European-wide, farmers are feeling the brunt of European regulations that are making their jobs harder, European attempts to import cheap food, both grain and meat and milk, from outside the European Union, where they say the measures, the requests, the demands being made of farmers there are far less stringent. So there's an injustice, they say, at the heart of the system that they are no longer willing to tolerate. And they say, very much like you'll remember the yellow vest protests of a few years ago here in France, they were kicked off by that straw that broke the camel's back. It was a rise in fuel taxes. Similarly, the drop really here that caused all of this to explode here in France was the announcement that there would no longer be subsidies on the crucial diesel that many of these farmers use to run their farms. So all of this combined now, a major headache for the French government, and not only for European governments and for Brussels by the time they meet on Thursday, trying to figure out how they can bring this sort of disruption to an end.
Now, as we mentioned, those protests were suspended Thursday with road blockades lifted after two major farmer unions met with French leaders. Well, the World Bank is projecting China's growth, or GDP, at 4.5% this year, the slowest in 30 years, and it could throttle back the amount of ag products it buys from the U.S. We've been covering the mounting economic woes in China for weeks, but the latest red flag came this week, with China's real estate slowdown only getting worse. According to the Wall Street Journal, the country's 100 largest developers recorded a deep slump in new home sales during the month of January, with sales dropping a whopping 34% from a year earlier. It marked the worst month of sales since at least 2020, which was when China's real estate information changed the way it calculated the data. Economists warn that China's economy already feels like it's in a recession, with the World Bank predicting China's economy to slow sharply this year. That's a look at ag around the world. Well, the chair of the Senate Ag Committee says she wants to make a major change in the Farm Bill. But an Iowa senator who's on the committee says there's no way it'll fly. That's in Chip's Corner next.